Do you live in a semi-detached house in the UK? Lots of people do. There are over 6.3 million semis in this country. They are more numerous than detached houses or flats, and only terraced houses are more popular. We've been building semi-detached houses in the UK since the 19th century, with a huge boom in the post-war years. Because there are so many, and they have been around for so long, there's a lot of variety in their layouts, and many semis are not designed for modern life. I offer consultations to homeowners right across the UK who need advice about construction costs, planning permission, building regulations, and whether there are better ways to get what they need from their homes. I recently had a consultation with the owner of this semi in England. He wanted to improve the layout and add at least one more bedroom. He had a budget of £200,000 and initially wanted to discuss extending into the roof. One of the neighbours had done this over a decade ago. I found the drawings on the local planning portal and advised my client this design would probably cost over £300,000 plus VAT to build today. But I was still able to advise on how to get more space from his home without breaking the budget. For this video, I've made two options to show what's possible when redesigning a semi-detached house. Let me know in the comments which option is your favourite. I'm going to talk about the project, my redesign, the practical issues, the planning and building regulations, and the costs. If you want to skip ahead, there are chapter timestamps below. Let's get started. The existing house. This house was built in the mid-20th century and is somewhat unusual in that it's only one story. In my experience, most semi-detached houses are usually 2 stories tall. This row of homes were all built to the same layout, off a private lane set back from the public road. This is something you don't see developers building anymore because land prices are so high. And most unusual of all, the main entrance door is at the side, not the front. It seems the original layout had a gap between the house and the garage, but the previous owners built a 1-story flat roof extension into that space. They also built this conservatory off the sitting room. My client bought the house about a year ago and paved most of the front garden to create extra parking space. This will come in handy for the redesign. The neighbour's 2-story extension and attic conversion was granted planning approval back in 2010. My client saw this as the answer to his problems, but the cost to build something like this today would be more than double what the neighbours paid back then. Many local authorities have planning policies against hip-to-gable extensions like this, especially on streets where houses all have the same design. Planners like to talk about preserving existing streetscapes, so I usually advise clients against this type of design because it often fails to get planning approval. That said, it seems to have worked here, so changing the appearance of the house from the street is probably not off the cards for my client. Option 1. My criteria for redesigning the house is to get one more bedroom, make the layout flow better, and keep the budget under £200,000. I'm going to discuss 2 options, so let me know in the comments which one you think works best. And I should also make clear that I don't provide drawings for my online consultation service. It's just a chat about the options, cost, planning and building regulations. I only do drawings for these videos. For option 1, I started by considering the entrance. I don't like the fact you have to walk in at the side. It just doesn't work for me. My first move is to extend the garage out to this point and create a new main entrance facing the street. If we increase the number of bedrooms in the house to 4, the planners will require 2 parking spaces off-street. I've left enough space on the driveway to make sure this can be done. Next up, I created a corridor in the centre of the house. This is where I want the bedrooms to be located. The rooms on either side will be equal size. I believe for a house to flow properly, there should be a clear split between public and private spaces. So my redesign will enter into the new open-plan kitchen living dining space. Next, I created space for coats and shoes in the entrance. The English building regulations have specific sizes for entrances to homes, which informed this design. I created a shower room and utility space along here also. I like using sliding pocket doors off corridors because they don't get in the way. Next, I took down this wall between the existing house, its old extension, and the garage. The wall is load-bearing and we will need several steel beams to hold up the roof in this area, but I think the expense is worth it. I'm also going to keep the existing garage walls and concrete slab. These can be insulated to meet the modern standard, but the flat roof above will almost certainly need to be raised up to allow for insulation. I made a whole video about converting garages, focusing on what's involved with building on top of an existing structure. It's much more challenging than people think, and I've left a link in the description if you want to find out more. I'm placing the kitchen here because I think it's the most important room in a modern house, and it should be as near the entrance door as possible. I like to consider what I call the Tesco test when designing a house. When you come back from the shops with bags of groceries, how many doors do you need to walk through to get to your kitchen? In my opinion, the fewer doors between a driveway and a kitchen, the better. Taking down that external wall is starting to pay off because I can now place the dining and living here. It's an open plan layout, but it's not a big square or rectangle. You can have a family in here, cooking, reading, and watching TV at the same time, but not getting in each other's way. And having the utilities separate like this keeps the noise from washing machines to a minimum. Next, I changed the door location slightly, and that allowed me to create shelving all along this corridor wall. Aside from being useful storage, it's also somewhere the client can place important things like family photos and artwork to personalize the space. It's important to consider natural light in corridors like this, and with a flat roof above, it should be feasible to place a skylight in there. That said, because it's less than 1 meter from the boundary with a neighbour, any roof light will need to be fire rated. With the living space worked out, the next step is the bedrooms. Bedroom 3 was easy, but for bedroom 4 I had to take away the conservatory. It has too much glass to comply with the regulations for a habitable room, which is why the previous owners had a double glazed bifold door between it and the house. This is a requirement of the building regulations. If I were to incorporate the conservatory into the house, I would need to dramatically reduce the amount of glass and insulate the roof, wall and floor, and this would just cost too much. I also couldn't leave the conservatory in place because a bedroom requires natural light, ventilation and an escape window of its own. I also took the decision to remove the chimney breasts from both rooms. The regulations require that beds need at least 750 millimeters of space to move around them, and the rooms just aren't big enough. It's important to keep in mind that chimneys are shared in semi-detached houses, so it's not possible to take down a chimney without the neighbour's permission. That said, it is possible to remove a chimney breast inside a room while keeping the chimney itself in place above the roof. This involves steel beams, and a recent client told me he had been quoted $5,000 to take out one fireplace in a room, which seems good value for money to me. In any event, I think this has to be done for option 1. Otherwise, these 2 bedrooms are just too small to comply with the space standards in the building regulations. You can see the overall layout works pretty well. Each bedroom gets a built-in wardrobe, and the house now has a clear split between a new open-plan space and the more private areas. Option 1 isn't perfect, however. The kitchen and living spaces are a bit small, and the central corridor takes up a significant amount of space in the house, but on balance, I like it. Option 2. After thinking about it for a while, I decided I could do better with a more radical redesign. What if I created a new entrance in the front of the original house? Given the planners allowed the neighbour up the road to radically change the symmetry of that semi-detached, surely cutting down this window to make a doorway wouldn't be that big a deal for the streetscape. I'm still aiming to get one more bedroom, make the layout flow better and keep the budget under £200,000. The big idea in option 2 is to reduce circulation space to a minimum. To achieve that, I have to let go of my idea that the house must have a clear split between public and private spaces. In this layout, I'm going to create bedrooms directly off the living space. I started by locating the kitchen next to the entrance. I can get much more countertop in this layout, and I don't need to demolish the chimney breasts. I decided to keep the original bathroom because moving it to a new location will require it to be upgraded to meet today's space standards. In short, it will get much bigger. By keeping the original location and layout of the bathroom, we don't need to comply with today's building regulations. The fittings can be upgraded, but the room can stay the same size. I also found space for a modest utility area here, just big enough for a stacked washer and dryer. The big move is to replace the conservatory with a fully habitable space. In my last video, I discussed in detail how the maximum amount of new glass in an extension is calculated. There's a link in the description if you want to know more. I originally thought of placing the dining table immediately next to the kitchen, but it actually wants to be over here. I think that works better, and I can now use this space for a breakfast bar. I closed up these French doors to make the space for a TV, and this living and dining space are well balanced. I used this existing doorway to access 2 new bedrooms, one in the converted garage and another in a new extension to the front. Because of the requirement to have 750 mils of space at the side of a bed, I can't use king-size beds like I have in the other rooms. These beds are queen beds, which are slightly smaller. Overall, option 2 has a much larger living space. There is plenty of room to walk past the table, and this new patio door at the end of the kitchen space will really help bring natural light into the room. If you are thinking about patio doors for your home, check out the sponsor of today's video, Sunflex UK. They design and manufacture high-quality aluminium windows and doors in the UK. I've used them on several of my own projects, and I believe they offer a great balance between cost and quality. Don't just take my word for it though, check out these videos I made, which include the cost. There's a link up here and in the description below. Which option is best? Option 2 has a better living space, but the bedrooms are smaller than option 1. However, option 1 has all its bedrooms in one distinct part of the house, and this has practical advantages. If you have friends over during the evening, they won't disturb anyone sleeping in the bedroom, for example. All design is a compromise, and there is no one perfect layout. Let me know in the comments whether you prefer option 1 or option 2. Would this redesign need planning permission? Both options would need planning permission. The main issue is that they each have an extension less than 1 meter from the boundary, visible from the street, so they don't have permitted development rights. That said, neither extension would overshadow or overlook the neighbours, so I think they each stand a good chance of getting planning approval. How much should this cost to build? This floor plan shows the items to be demolished in red dashed lines. The extension in option 1 is 19 square metres, and the going rate in 2024 across the UK is around £3,500 plus VAT per square metre, so that's £66,000 plus VAT. Converting the existing garage would cost around £20,000, and taking down that load-bearing wall would cost the same, once you factor in the remedial work to the floor, roof and existing drains and electrics. Taking down these chimneys will cost around £10,000. A decent mass-market kitchen would cost around £15,000, allow £10,000 to fit out the shower and utility, including plumbing, drainage and tiling. Allow £5,000 to demolish this conservatory, build up the existing opening and fit a new UPVC double-glazed window. And these internal alterations to the house would cost at least £40,000, including a new heating system, electrics and plumbing. All in, option 1 would cost at least £186,000 plus VAT, so that comes in over budget at £223,000 when you include value-added tax. Option 2 has a smaller extension on the driveway, only 12 square metres, but we also built a replacement for the conservatory, which is 7 square metres, so that's 19 square metres, the same as option 1. £66,000 plus VAT for new construction. Add to that a larger kitchen at £20,000 and converting the garage another £20,000, plus the opening in this load-bearing wall at £5,000, renovating the existing bathroom at £2,000, cutting down the front window and fitting a new glass screen and door at £10,000. There is slightly less demolition inside the existing house and fewer new partition walls, so that might come in around £30,000. All told, option 2 would cost at least £153,000 plus VAT, so £183,000 in total, meaning option 2 is affordable within the budget. Let me know in the comments which option you prefer, and if you enjoyed the video, check out this playlist of other properties I have redesigned. If you are thinking about altering a home anywhere in the UK, check out the reallifearchitecture.co.uk website. You can book a consultation with me if you need specific advice about your property. There's the link in the description, and please read the terms and conditions before you book.